The sky above Valoria burned red and orange. It was not a sunset. It was fire. The third moon, the one the children called the Silver Eye, had cracked open like an egg. Pieces of it fell through space, leaving trails of light that looked almost beautiful. Almost. But Ambassador Kiath knew what those lights meant. Death was coming. Kiath stood at the tall window of the council chamber and watched the destruction. Behind him, the other council members argued. Their voices were loud and full of fear. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run. But Kiath knew the truth that none of them wanted to say out loud. There was nowhere to run. There was no one left to fight. And the Harrow did not accept surrender. The Harrow were machines. Not the kind that served or helped. They were the kind that conquered and destroyed. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what they wanted. They moved from system to system, burning everything in their path. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. They simply erased. For 12,000 years, the Valorian people had lived in peace. Their cities floated above silver oceans. Their ships traveled between stars. They had art and music and knowledge that other species envied. But none of that mattered now. The Harrow cared nothing for beauty or wisdom. They only cared about ending things. Ketch turned away from the window. The council chamber was a grand room with walls of white crystal. Light used to dance through those walls, creating rainbows on the floor. Now the light was dim and red, colored by the fires outside. Elder Voss, the oldest member of the council, spoke with a shaking voice. We sent messages to every major power in the galaxy. The Korath Empire, the Sen Federation, the merchants of the Outer Rim. They all gave the same answer. And what answer is that? Keith asked, though he already knew. They will not help us. They say the Harrow are too strong. They say getting involved would only bring destruction to their own worlds. They offer us their sympathy. Nothing more. The words hit Kiath like a blow to the chest. Sympathy. What good was sympathy when your cities were burning? What good was sympathy when your children hid in underground shelters, crying for parents who would never come home? A young council member named Tilia stood up. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. There must be someone. In all the galaxy, there must be one species willing to stand with us. Kia thought about this. He had spent his whole life as a diplomat. He had traveled to hundreds of worlds. He had met thousands of species, and he knew something that the others did not. The strong did not help the weak. The powerful protected only themselves. This was the way of things. But then a memory came to him. It was from long ago, when he was young and still learning his trade. An old scholar had shown him ancient records from the edge of explored space. There was a small planet there, blue and green, circling a yellow sun. The people of that planet were young. They had only recently learned to travel between stars. Most species considered them primitive and unimportant, but the record said something strange about them. Something that did not fit the pattern Kiath knew so well. There is one possibility, Kiath said slowly. A species called humans. Elder Voss made a sound of disbelief. Humans? Those creatures from the Sol system. They are barely out of their cradle. What could they possibly do against the Harrow? I do not know, Kiath admitted, but the ancient records speak of them in a way they speak of no other species. They say humans are different. They say humans do things that make no sense. They fight battles they cannot win. They help strangers for no reward. They refuse to accept what everyone else accepts. That sounds like madness, another council member said. Perhaps Kiath agreed, but we have tried sanity. We have tried logic. We have asked the wise and the powerful for help, and they have refused. Maybe it is time to try madness. The council fell silent. Outside, another explosion lit up the sky. Somewhere in the city, a building collapsed. The sound was like thunder. Elder Voss closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there were tears on his face. Go then, Kiath. Find these humans. Beg them if you must. We have nothing left to lose. Kiath bowed low. He did not feel hope. Hope had died when the first Harrow ships entered their system. But he felt something else. A small flame in his chest that refused to go out. Maybe it was determination. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe they were the same thing. He left the council chamber and walked through the empty streets of the capital city. The evacuation had already begun. Families carried whatever they could. Children cried. Old ones moved slowly, looking back at homes they would never see again. Keith reached the spaceport and boarded the last diplomatic vessel. It was a small ship, built for speed, not combat. It would not survive a battle with the Harrow, but it did not need to. It only needed to reach human space before everything ended. As the ship rose through the burning atmosphere, Keith looked down at his dying world. The silver oceans reflected the flames. The floating cities were falling one by one. Everything he had ever known was disappearing. He turned away from the window and set his course for a small blue planet called Earth. His mission was simple: find a human, any human, and ask for help. It was a foolish mission. Everyone knew that. But Keith went anyway. Because when everything is lost, even foolish hope is better than none. Catch did not find a human on Earth. The blue planet was far away, and his ship was not fast enough to reach it in time. But humans had spread across many stations and outposts in the years since they discovered space travel. Keith searched for them in the places between places, the stations where travelers stopped to rest and refuel. He found what he was looking for on Nexus-7. Nexus-7 was not a beautiful place. It was a trading station built into an asteroid at the edge of 3 different territories. The halls were dirty. The lights were dim. The air smelled like engine oil and cheap food. Species of all kinds came here to trade, to hide, or to forget. Keith walked through the crowded corridors, looking for humans. He had studied pictures of them before his journey. They were strange creatures. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft skin in various shades. No scales, no shells, no natural weapons. They looked fragile, weak, easy to break. He wondered if the ancient records had been wrong. In a small cantina near the cargo bays, Keith found one. The human sat alone at a corner table, drinking something brown from a dirty glass. He wore a gray jacket that had been patched many times. His hair was dark and messy. His face was tired, with lines around the eyes that spoke of many hard years. Keith approached slowly. Other species in the cantina watched him with curiosity. Valorians were rare in this part of space. Most had never seen one. "May I sit?" Keith asked. The human looked up. His eyes were brown, the color of soil after rain. He studied Keith for a long moment, then shrugged. "Free station. Do what you want." Keith sat down across from him. Up close, the human looked even more tired. There were scars on his hands. Old ones faded white against his skin. "My name's Keith. I am an ambassador of the Valorian people." "Jack," the human said. "Jack Cole. I haul cargo." He took another drink. "Never met a Valorian before? Heard your people keep to yourselves. What brings you to a dump like this?" Keith did not know how to begin. He had prepared speeches in his mind during the long journey, grand words about duty and honor and the fate of civilizations. But sitting here in this dirty cantina, across from this tired man, those words seemed foolish, so he told the truth. "My world is dying," Keith said. "A fleet of machines called the Harrow is destroying everything. Our cities are burning. Our people are being killed. We asked every major power in the galaxy for help. They all refused." Jack set down his glass. His expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. "And you came here looking for help?" "Yes. To Nexus-7. I came looking for humans." Jack laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Then you came to the wrong place, friend. I'm just a cargo hauler. I move boxes from one station to another. I'm nobody." "The ancient records of my people speak of humans," Keith said. "They say your kind is different from other species. They say you fight when others run. They say you help when others turn away. Records can be wrong." "They can." Keith leaned forward. "But I have traveled very far, and I have nothing left to lose. My people are dying while I sit here talking. Children are hiding in shelters, waiting for death. I do not know if you can help. I do not know if anyone can help. But you are the only being in this station who has not walked away from me. That must mean something." Jack was quiet for a long time. He stared at his drink. Then he stared at the table. Then he stared at the wall behind Quetz's head. "Why me?" he finally asked. "There are millions of humans. Soldiers, scientists, people with ships and weapons and power. Why ask a cargo hauler?" Kia thought about this question. He did not have a good answer. He only had the truth. "Because you are here. Because you listened. Because everyone else in this galaxy has told me no, and you have not. Not yet." Jack stood up. For a moment, Kia thought he was going to walk away, that this last hope would disappear like all the others. But Jack did not walk away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal key. "My ship is in Bay 14, he said. "It's not much. Old freighter called the Gray Sparrow. It can fly, but it won't win any races. And it definitely won't beat a war fleet." "Then why?" "Because you asked for help?" Jack's voice was rough, like he had not used it much. "Where I come from, that means something. Maybe it shouldn't, be it stupid. But my mother always said that the measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when it's hard." He put the key on the table. "I can't promise anything. I can't promise we'll save your world. I can't even promise we'll survive. But I can promise I'll try. That's all I've got." Kia stared at the key. It was small and worn, scratched from years of use. But to him in that moment, it was the most valuable thing in the universe. He picked it up. "Then let us try together." The Gray Sparrow was old. Her hull was dented and patched. Her engines made sounds that worried Kieth. Her interior smelled like metal and sweat, and something burned. She was not a warship. She was not even a good cargo ship anymore, but she flew. And in times of desperation, that was enough. Jack Cole sat in the pilot seat and guided them through space toward the Endara system. Keith sat beside him, watching the stars pass. Neither of them spoke much. There was not much to say. They both knew what waited for them. When they arrived at the edge of Valorian space, Keith saw the destruction with his own eyes. The outer colonies were gone. Nothing remained but debris and dust. The defense stations were silent, their lights dark, their crews dead or fled. "How many ships does the enemy have?" Jack asked. "Our last count was over 300. Jack nodded slowly. He did not seem surprised or afraid. He just looked thoughtful, like a man considering a difficult problem. "And how many do you have left?" "Perhaps 50, maybe less. Most are damaged. Many have no crews. 50 against 300. Jack rubbed his chin. "Those are bad odds. They are impossible odds. No such thing." Jack turned to look at Kieth. "My grandfather fought in a war on Earth, long ago. His unit was surrounded by enemies. No supplies, no backup. Everyone said they were dead. But they held out for 3 weeks until help arrived. When they asked my grandfather how he did it, you know what he said?" Kieth shook his head. "Said we didn't have time to die. We were too busy fighting." Jack smiled, but it was a hard smile without warmth. The Harrow think they've already won. That's their weakness. They don't expect anyone to fight back. They don't know how to handle someone who refuses to lose. "And what do you suggest we do?" Jack pulled up a map of the system on his screen. His fingers moved fast, marking points and drawing lines. "We can't beat them in a straight fight, but we don't have to. We just have to hurt them. Make them bleed. Make them slow down. Every day we buy is another day your people can escape or hide. Every ship we destroy is one less ship killing innocents." He pointed to a spot on the map. "This is their supply line. They bring fuel and parts through here. If we hit it, we can cripple their operations for days. The Gray Sparrow has no weapons. We don't need weapons. We need creativity." Over the next weeks, Keith learned what human creativity meant. Jack showed the Valorian pilots how to hide in asteroid fields and attack from ambush. He taught them to use the gravity of planets to slingshot around enemies. He showed them how to create false signals that made one ship look like 20. He turned cargo containers into bombs and broken satellites into traps. The Harrow were powerful, but they were machines. They followed patterns. They expected their enemies to follow patterns too. When the Valorian ships did something unexpected, the Harrow struggled to respond. The first victory was small. A single Harrow scout ship, destroyed by a trap Jack had set. But that small victory changed everything. Word spread among the surviving Valorians. A human was fighting for them. A human from a distant planet with no reason to help was risking his life for strangers. More volunteers came forward. Pilots who had given up found their courage again. Engineers who had fled returned to repair ships. Even civilians picked up tools and helped build the traps Jack designed. Keth watched Jack work and tried to understand him. The human slept only a few hours each night. He ate little. His hands were always busy fixing something or planning something. When Keth asked him why he pushed himself so hard, Jack gave a simple answer: "'Cause people are counting on me. How can I rest when they can't?" This was something Keth had never seen before. Among his own people, leaders gave orders, and others followed. But Jack did not give orders. He worked alongside everyone else. He carried heavy equipment. He crawled into damaged engines. He did the same work as the lowest mechanic, and because of this, people followed him. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The Harrow began to notice the resistance. They sent larger forces to find and destroy the hidden bases. But Jack moved constantly, never staying in one place for long. He used the wreckage of dead ships for cover. He hid in the radiation of dying stars. He became a ghost that the machines could not catch. "You fight like nothing I have ever seen," Kiev told him one night. As they rested in a hidden cave on a barren moon, Jack shrugged. "I fight like a human. We don't know any other way. Your people must be great warriors." "No," Jack shook his head. "Most of us aren't warriors at all. We're farmers and builders and teachers and parents. We don't like war. We don't want war. But when someone threatens the people we care about, we become something else. Something even we don't fully understand." He looked out at the stars through the cave entrance. The Harrow think they know what humans are. They have data and records and analysis, but data doesn't capture what we really are. It doesn't capture what happens when you push a human too far. Keth thought about this for a long time, and slowly he began to understand why the ancient records spoke of humans with such confusion and wonder. They were not special because of their bodies or their technology. They were special because of something inside them. A fire that refused to die. A stubbornness that defied all logic, and somehow it made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. News traveled fast across the stars. Ships carried stories from station to station, from world to world. And the story spreading fastest was the strangest one anyone had ever heard. A single human was fighting the Harrow at first. People laughed. Humans were young. Humans were weak. What could one of them do against an army of machines that had destroyed empires? But the laughing stopped when the reports kept coming. A supply line destroyed. A scout fleet ambushed. A command ship crippled by a trap no one had ever seen before. The human was not winning. Everyone knew that. But he was not losing either. He was doing something that no one had done in centuries. He was making the Harrow bleed, and that changed everything. On a mining colony in the Ferric system, a retired soldier named Varn watched the news reports with tired eyes. He was old now, his scales gray and cracked. He had fought in many battles during his youth. He had seen friends die. He had given up on war long ago. But something about the reports bothered him. Not the human Varn had never met a human and did not care about them. What bothered him was the shame. Here was a creature from a species everyone dismissed, fighting alone for strangers. And where was Varn? Safe in his home, doing nothing. He thought about this for 3 days. Then he packed his old armor, boarded a transport, and headed for the Endera system. He was not alone. Across the galaxy, others felt the same shame. A merchant captain named Donna closed her trading routes and gathered her crew. "We have weapons on this ship," she told them. "We might as well use them for something meaningful." A group of engineers from the Sen Federation quit their jobs and stole a repair ship. Their leader, a young woman named Selly, left a note for her supervisor. "I cannot build things while others destroy everything. Forgive me." Even the outcasts came. Pirates who had spent their lives running from the law. Criminals who had nothing left to lose. They came not because they were good, but because they were tired of being forgotten. By the time the fleet gathered at the edge of Valorian space, there were 60 ships. Most were old. Many were damaged. None were built for war. But they had come, and that was what mattered. Kieth stood on the bridge of the Gray Sparrow and watched them arrive. Tears ran down his face, and he did not try to hide them. "You did this," he said to Jack. "You gave them hope." Jack shook his head. "I didn't give them anything. They had it inside them all along. I just reminded them." Among the new arrivals was a ship from Earth itself. It was not a military vessel. Earth's government had refused to get involved. But 12 humans had come anyway, flying an old transport they had bought with their own money. Their leader was a woman named Lena Price. She was tall and thin, with short gray hair and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. She had been a commander in Earth's Navy once. Now she was nothing. A disgrace. A criminal, according to some, when she came aboard the Gray Sparrow. She found Jack in the engine room, repairing a broken power line. "Commander Price," she said, extending her hand. "Just Lena now," she corrected. "I lost the title a long time ago." "What happened?" Lena's jaw tightened. "I refused an order. They told me to leave a colony to die because rescuing them was too dangerous. I went anyway. Saved 900 people. Lost my career." Jack nodded slowly. "Sounds like you made the right choice. Not according to the Navy. The Navy wasn't there." Jack wiped his hands on a rag and looked at her. "What brings you here, Lena?" "Same thing that brought you, I suppose." She looked around the cramped engine room. "I heard a human was fighting for aliens on the other side of the galaxy. I thought he might need some help." Jack smiled. It was the first real smile Keith had seen from him. "I could use some help," Jack admitted. "I could use a lot of help." Lena introduced her crew. There was Sam, a pilot who had lost his license for flying into a war zone to rescue refugees. There was Maria, a doctor who had been expelled from her hospital for treating patients without insurance. There was Ben, an engineer who had quit his job at a weapons company because he could not stomach building things. Designed to kill? Each of them had a story. Each of them had been called foolish or criminal or worse. But they were here now. They were ready to fight. Kep watched them work together and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Not hope exactly. Something quieter than that. Something steadier. Faith. "Why do you do this?" he asked Lena one evening as they reviewed battle plans. "Your government did not ask you to come. Your people do not even know you are here. Why risk your lives for strangers?" Lena thought about this for a moment. Then she said something that Kieth would remember for the rest of his life. "It's because if we don't help when we can, what's the point of being alive? Life isn't about staying safe. It's about doing something that matters. And this matters." She gestured at the fleet gathered around them, at the ships from a dozen different worlds. "Look at what we've built. Not because anyone ordered us to. Not because anyone paid us. But because one person decided to try and others followed. That's what humans do, Kieth. We start things. We inspire things. Even when it's stupid. Even when it's hopeless. Because sometimes stupid and hopeless are the only paths that lead somewhere good." Outside the window, the lights of 60 ships glowed against the darkness. Small lights. Fragile lights. But together, they were brighter than any single star. The Harrow fleet came at dawn. 200 warships moved through space. Like a wave of metal and death. Their hulls were black and featureless, built for function, not beauty. Their weapons powered up, filling the void with a low hum that could be felt even through the hulls of the defending ships. Jack. Cole stood on the bridge of the Gray Sparrow and watched them approach. Beside him stood Kieth and Lena and the others who had become his family over these long weeks of fighting. This is it, Jack said quietly. Everything we've done leads to this moment. The comm system crackled. Voices from the other ships asked for orders, for guidance, for reassurance. Jack took a deep breath and opened a channel to the entire fleet. I'm not going to lie to you, he said. The numbers are against us. Many of us won't survive this day. I want you to know that I understand if anyone wants to leave. No one will blame you. You've already done more than anyone had a right to ask. He paused. The channel was silent. But I also want you to know something else. Those machines out there, they've conquered hundreds of worlds. They've destroyed civilizations that were old when my planet was still covered in ice. They've never lost a real fight. Not once in all their history. Jack's voice grew stronger. But they've never fought us. Not like this. Not against people who chose to be here. Not against people who fight because they believe in something bigger than themselves. The Harrow don't understand that. They don't understand love, or hope, or stubbornness. And that's why, no matter what happens today, we've already beaten them. He looked at the screen showing the enemy fleet. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fly into that fleet. We're going to hit them harder than they've ever been hit. We're going to show them what it means to fight people who refuse to give up. And even if we fall, we're going to fall in a way that the whole galaxy remembers. He released the transmit button. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice came back. Grace Sparrow, this is the merchant ship Donna's Pride. We're with you. Another voice. This is the Varn's Revenge. Let's make them remember us. One by one, every ship in the fleet responded. 60 voices, speaking different languages from different worlds. All saying the same thing. We're with you. The battle began. The first hours were chaos. Energy weapons filled space with deadly light. Ships exploded and burned and broke apart. The Harrow pushed forward, relentless as always, their numbers overwhelming. But the defenders did not break. They fought in ways the Harrow had never seen. They sacrificed themselves to protect each other. They flew into impossible situations and somehow survived. They did things that made no logical sense, and because of that, the Harrow could not predict them. In the 6th hour, everything changed. The Gray Sparrow had taken heavy damage. Half her systems were offline. Her hull was cracked in 3 places. Jack knew she would not survive another direct hit, but he also knew something else. The Harrow command ship was exposed. If it fell, the entire enemy fleet would lose coordination. They would become confused, vulnerable. Jack looked at his crew. They understood without him saying a word. Lena said. Get to the escape pods. Take everyone who can't fight. Lena, that's an order. She smiled. And for the first time since Cuth had met her, she looked at peace. This was always going to be my last flight. Let me make it count. Jack wanted to argue, but there was no time. He helped the wounded into the escape pods and launched them into space. Then he ran back to the bridge, but Lena was already there, her hands on the controls. I said go, she told him, not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because someone has to tell the story. Someone has to make sure people remember what happened here. She looked at him with steady eyes. That's your job now, Jack Cole. Live. Remember. Tell everyone what we did. Before Jack could respond, she hit the emergency release. His section of the ship separated from the rest and tumbled away into space. Through the small window, Jack watched the Gray Sparrow turn toward the Harrow command ship. He watched Lena push the engines past their limits, flames trailing behind the battered hull. He watched the command ship try to turn, try to escape. It was too slow. The Gray Sparrow struck the command ship at full speed. For a moment, both vessels seemed frozen in space. Then light consumed them, brighter than a star, and when it faded, there was only debris. The Harrow fleet stopped. Their movements became random, uncoordinated. Ships that had worked together as one began bumping into each other, firing in wrong directions. Lena had done it. The remaining defenders pushed into the gap she had created. They tore through the confused enemy fleet with desperate fury. Ships fell on both sides, but slowly, impossibly. The Harrow began to retreat. When dawn came to the Valorian homeworld, the defenders held the sky. 3 months later, Kieth stood at the edge of a ruined city. Workers were beginning to rebuild. Children played in the rubble. Life was returning. Beside him stood Jack Cole, older now, with new scars and new gray in his hair. He had kept his promise. He had lived. He had told the story. "They're building a monument," Kieth said. "For those who fell. What will it say?" Kieth smiled. "We asked many survivors what words should be carved there. They all said the same thing. The words you spoke when I asked why you helped us." Jack nodded slowly. He remembered the monument was simple. A black stone pillar standing where the first city had burned, and carved into its surface, in the languages of every species that had fought, were 5 words, because someone asked for help. Across the galaxy, species who had once ignored humanity began to pay attention. They sent diplomats to Earth. They studied human history. They tried to understand what made this young species so different. They never fully understood. Perhaps it could not be understood, only felt, but they learned one thing. When the darkness came, when hope faded, when everything seemed lost, there was one species that would always answer the call. All you had to do was ask. The end.